Today we're going to talk about how to draw the lips and combine the features of the muzzle. The lips are important features for more than one reason. Usually we think of the eyes as the anchor point for the face, and that's pretty much true. Not only in terms of positioning the facial features, but a lot of our emotions are defined by the way the eyes and eyebrows move. However, the relationship between the mouth and the eyes give these expressions context, and in certain instances can define the emotions being conveyed completely. For example, you can smile with your eyes, but the mouth tells you how hard you're smiling, if it's a fake smile, if you're trying not to smile, and the list goes on. Eventually, we'll do a video that strives to capture the nuances of facial expressions, but today we'll focus on drawing the mouth and adding it to the muzzle. The muzzle includes the nose, mouth, jaws, and chin. First, let's walk through some basic anatomy so we can understand how to draw the mouth and surrounding elements. When we drew the nose, we highlighted the wings, base, and bulb of the nose, and of course the nostrils. There are two features that we need to add to connect the nose and the mouth. We'll refer to these features as the philtrum and the philtrum column. The philtrum column can be thought of as two cylinders that go from the nostrils to the top of the cupid's bow, right above the upper lids. Some people have prominent philtrum columns, others have philtrums that are nearly imperceptible. Under the philtrum, there's a curved edge called the white roll. This is a rounded edge that separates the lips from the philtrum and the philtrum column. The white roll is often lighter than the lips. Women often cover this part of the lips as well as the lips to give the illusion of having bigger lips, so it might not always appear as lighter, especially when people are using makeup. Below the white roll, we have the upper lip. We'll take three shapes into consideration to help us draw the forms of the upper lip. One lip heart and two lip cones on either side. Below the upper lip is the mouth line. This line is important because it's the area that we reference when we're drawing using the Loomis method template, specifically when the mouth is in the resting position. The mouth line can be found somewhere between the bottom of the top row of teeth and the gums that hold the top row of teeth. Relative to the visible part of the face, mouth lines are found about 2/3 up from the bottom of the chin to the nose when using the Loomis method. But of course, as we mentioned in the previous video, the proportions given in the Loomis method are made to be manipulated once we understand the baseline template. At the sides of the lips, we have some lip donuts. At this point, I'm just going out of my way to name the anatomy whatever I think makes sense. The lip donut contains a recess at the sides of the top lip and a donut-shaped form that surrounds it. The bottom lip can be thought of as a bow that wraps around the cylinder. In the center, we have two elongated spheres and two lip cones on either side. All the forms we just mentioned can be found on a rounded facial plane that goes from the nose to the bottom of the mouth. We briefly mentioned this plane when we went over the planes of the face. We simplified the plane by saying it's a sphere, but the actual shape is closer to an upside down heart. The lines start at the nose, wraps around the lip donuts, and comes to a line that separates the bottom of the lips from the chin. And that about covers it in terms of anatomy. I know we just went over a lot. Individually, these shapes are simple, but when we try to combine them, it can get pretty complex. Features start floating every which way, and we can't figure out why the drawing looks off. Let's tackle that problem now. The most important shapes to be able to draw are cubes, and in this case, rectangular prisms. It's also important to be able to stack shapes on top of each other. Let's use rectangular prisms to represent the side view of the face that's facing towards the left. We'll make a rectangle for the nose, a rectangle for the area between the nose and the lips, a rectangle for the top lip, a rectangle for the bottom lip, and the area between the bottom lip and the chin, and then the chin. I'm pointing out the obvious here, but notice that the parts that protrude farther out are left of the parts that are more inward. Let's draw these shapes from an angle. We'll draw a rectangular prism for the nose, a rectangular prism for the area between the nose and the top of the lips, a rectangular prism for the top of the lips, a rectangular prism for the bottom lips, a rectangular prism for the area between the bottom lips and the chin, and a rectangular prism for the chin. Now let's draw vertical tick marks at the center of each shape. Notice that the same rule applies. Because our figure is looking to the left, the shapes that stick out farther are left of those that are more tucked in. As we move closer to the front view, the verticals of these shapes start to line up more. Finally, let's use the same idea to draw facial features. The same rules apply. If the part you're trying to draw sticks out more, then the center line should be to the left of the body parts that are positioned further back. Of course, the opposite would be true if the body parts were facing to the right. One thing to notice is that the lips take on a different shape in the 3/4 view and side view, because of the overlapping and foreshortening that's happening. Let's take a moment to look at the teeth. We can group the teeth into 4 groups: incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. I like to take one side of the upper row of teeth into account at a time. This gives us a 2, 1, 2, 3 pattern. 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars, and 3 molars. This pattern gets mirrored on the horizontal and vertical axis. Remember that at rest, the mouth line is between the bottom of the top row of teeth and the top gums. This second drawing I did illustrates a common mistake that people make when drawing the mouth. They draw it as a semicircle. Altogether, the teeth form a rounded rectangle. We should also take into consideration how the lips move. When the lips are puckered, the lip corners compress inward and the lip heart gets taller. The bottom lip spheres also become taller and sometimes more defined, creating a U shape with a delineating line down the middle. Remember in a previous video when I said, when you think of the zygomatic bone, think smile? When it comes to widening the mouth, like you would when you're smiling, the shape of the lips are pulled back against the teeth and towards the zygomatic bones, which flattens out these shapes. The last thing we should mention about movement is that the teeth are not nutcrackers. That is, they don't move up and down. Instead, the top row of teeth are stationary and the bottom row of teeth hinge downwards using the rotation of the jaw. The more the mouth opens, the more the tops of the bottom row of teeth face the viewer. Finally, let's draw from reference. I've said it time and time again. Drawing from reference will get you more intimately acquainted with the forms of the anatomy, and it will increase your visual library. This means that you'll have an easier time drawing from imagination. I should say this though, you should make sure that you're breaking down the reference image into simpler shapes so that you're understanding what's actually going on. Otherwise, you'd just be practicing rendering. The first reference illustrates an important point. The chin, nose, or lips might be the body part that sticks out the farthest, and the top lip might not stick out as far as the bottom lip. It's more important to take note of what sticks out the farthest when drawing from reference, or make a decision about what you want to stick out the farthest if you're engaging in character design. It's also important that we do not draw the mouth line going too far back. It should never pass the eye. I didn't draw the eyes in this picture, but you can see how the mouth barely goes past the nose. In this next reference, we'll do a quick review of the Loomis method. Obviously this head is tilted, and it might be confusing to figure out where to place the features. In the next video, we'll go over how to render, but after that, we'll focus on how to draw the head from any angle. For now, I know that the top of the ear and the brow line are in line when we are drawing the Loomis method, so I can use that fact to estimate the angle of tilt. There's nothing special going on here. We handle drawing from the reference like we always do, by simplifying the shapes, and in this case, we can make a note about which body parts are sticking out the farthest, while also taking note of the relative vertical positioning of the nose, mouth, and chin. This next reference has a tilt in a 3/4 view. To me, it looks like the head is barely tilted. It also looks like the top and bottom lips stick out at a similar distance. So I use the center line of the top and bottom lips to gauge the angle of tilt of the head. Notice the overlapping that is taking place on the top lip because the lip heart is closer to us than the far lip cone on the top lip. In this next reference, we can see that the lipstick is covering some of the white roll. Also, look how subtle the philtrum and the philtrum columns are. When you're designing characters, this is one of the decisions that you can make so you're not creating the same types of faces repeatedly. For me, art happens when we use our own experiences and perspective to make purposeful decisions that lead to an outcome. Of course, this outcome might be riddled with happy accidents, but the decision should still be made. While we're here, notice that the lips are very glossy, which leads to a lot of specular highlights. In the next video, we'll talk about how to render this type of thing. In this last reference, we can see that it's a 3/4 view of a smile. We'll take note of what features are protruding out the farthest like always. And also, note that the teeth do not protrude farther than the lips. And since the lips are smiling, they're stretched and pulled upwards. One thing I want you to notice is that towards the end of this drawing, I lighten up the lines for the teeth. We do not see lines in real life. Instead, we focus on contrast between elements, and if the contrast is great enough, then we could create a line there. There's not a lot of contrast between the teeth lines and the teeth, so we could simply imply them. If we draw the teeth lines, then it'd be like we'd be drawing black lines on the teeth in the reference, and that would look kind of strange. At the end of the day, this is an area where you'll need to make a creative decision. Well, that about covers it for today. Remember that I have a cheat sheet PDF in the description. Let me know if this video is helpful, and also let me know if these PDF cheat sheets are helpful. Like I said before, in the next video we'll go over rendering. I hope to see you there. In any case, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, be safe, take care, and later days.